Dive Podcast. Straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed. You're tuning in for a crucial update. There's been a lot happening diplomatically around the conflict in Ukraine.
Yeah, quite a flurry of activity. Potential peace plans, direct talks.
Exactly. And the U.S. president is right in the middle of it, talking with the Russian president, envoys meeting. It's moving quickly.
Very fast.
So we want to really dive in and pull out the key bits for you about this proposed peace plan and these negotiations, make it clear what's actually going on.
Right. And what's striking is how several different diplomatic threads seem to be, well, converging, maybe pointing towards some kind of de-escalation. Still very uncertain, though.
Okay, let's start with this U.S. initiative. It seems like something concrete is forming. Keith Kellogg, one of the U.S. president's special envoys, he outlined the very first point of what sounds like a big 22-point peace plan.
And that first point?
A comprehensive ceasefire. That's the starting block, apparently.
Okay. And this wasn't just pulled out of thin air, right?
No. It reportedly came out of talks back on April 23rd in London. You had U.S., Ukrainian, and European officials there.
Right. And didn't some reports mention NATO?
Yes. Reports suggest the plan also tackles the Russian president's big sticking point, the U.S. position on Ukraine joining NATO.
That's huge. Addressing that up front. Well, it shows they're trying to tackle a core Russian concern early on. NATO expansion is, a major security issue from Moscow's perspective.
We also heard from Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State. He first called it a tough peace plan. But then later, he used the phrase strong peace plan. Bit of a shift there.
Interesting wording change. Maybe signaling something.
Could be. He also said that after talking with the Russian foreign minister, the understanding now is that Russia will actually prepare its own document.
Detailing what they want for a ceasefire.
Exactly. Their demands. And that hopefully opens the door to wider talks.
Okay, so Russia committing to put their ceasefire terms on paper, that is a concrete step. It moves things beyond just talk, potentially.
Definitely. Then there were the direct talks. Russia and Ukraine meeting in Istanbul, May 16th.
First time in 3 years they'd met like that, wasn't it?
3 years? Just having them in the same room after all this time? Well, that's something in itself.
Absolutely. Direct talks, even when things are tense, are usually the best way to, figure out where the other side stands. Find common ground, maybe.
And they didn't just meet. There were actual outcomes from Istanbul. Both sides agreed they'd prepare and share their conditions for a ceasefire.
Okay, so mirroring what Rubio mentioned about Russia preparing demands, both sides are now tasked with that.
Seems like it. And, importantly, they agreed on a prisoner swap. A big one.
The 1,000 for 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000 for 1,000. That's a major humanitarian move.
It really is. Exchanges like that, especially on that scale, can make a real difference to people's lives. And sometimes they help build a tiny bit of trust, maybe improve the atmosphere for more talks. It's fragile, but it helps.
Also in Istanbul, Ukraine formally asked for direct talks between their president and the Russian president.
And Moscow's reaction?
They acknowledged the requests. They just say yes or no immediately, just acknowledged it. And Secretary Rubio welcomed the prisoner exchange agreement and the plan to outline ceasefire conditions.
So the U.S. is signaling support for these initial steps. It seems like a coordinated international push, perhaps.
Yeah, and interestingly, the Russian foreign minister specifically noted Ukraine agreed to restart those Istanbul talks with U.S. help.
With U.S. assistance.
Yeah, and he confirmed Moscow was ready to keep working with Washington on it. It really underlines how important the U.S. role is seen to be here.
It suggests Russia, despite everything, sees value in having the U.S. involved, maybe as a facilitator or someone who can influence Ukraine or offer assurances.
Let's pivot to what some of the leaders themselves are saying. The Russian President Vladimir Putin, he laid out Russia's aims.
What did he say?
Basically eliminating the causes of the conflict, ensuring long-term peace and security for Russia, and also protecting the interests of people in certain territories who see Russian as their language and Russia as their, homeland.
Okay, so framing it around root causes, Russian security and the Russian-speaking populations, that gives us insight into their core objectives, their narrative.
He also said he believes reconciliation with Ukraine is inevitable.
Inevitable.
But added it's just a matter of time. So a very long-term view, perhaps.
Right. Believing things will eventually normalize, but matter of time could mean, anything. It highlights the huge challenges still there.
And then a warning note from Dmitry Medvedev, deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council. He warned that if these peace talks collapse, things could get much worse. More terrible stage, he called it. New weapons, maybe new countries getting involved.
Wow, that really raises the stakes.
Yeah, and he specifically cautioned against using ultimatums in the talks.
So pushing for negotiation over just making demands underscores how badly things could go if diplomacy fails.
Then the U.S. president announced that big phone call with the Russian president, scheduled for May 19th, 5 p.m. Moscow time.
And the agenda.
Ukraine, obviously, but also trade. And he planned follow-up calls with the Ukrainian president and NATO allies afterwards.
A busy day of calls.
He said he hoped it would be productive, maybe lead to a ceasefire announcement and an end to this very brutal war, as he put it.
That direct presidential contact is key, shows the urgency, and hoping for a ceasefire. Well, that reflects the desire to stop the fighting quickly.
And another U.S. envoy, Steve Whitkoff, sounded pretty optimistic about that call.
Oh, yeah.
He said he thought it could be successful, maybe clear the logjam in the whole settlement process.
Clear the logjam, okay.
He acknowledged both sides have their positions set. And the real trick is, finding a way to narrow that gap.
That makes sense. Whitkoff thinks the top-level talk can push things forward. It's classic negotiation, isn't it? Bridging the gap between stated positions.
Okay, finally, how is the rest of the world reacting? The German chancellor said European leaders wanted to talk to the U.S. president before his call with the Russian president.
Coordination among allies, in sense.
And the Ukrainian president talked about the upcoming call with the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance. So lots of consultation. And Secretary Rubio, again, he called these talks between the U.S. and Russian presidents the only chance to end the conflict.
The only chance. That's strong language. Really emphasizes the perceived importance, the pressure on this channel.
But it's not all optimism. The British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and the French President, Emmanuel Macron, both said the position Russia put forward in the talks with Ukraine was unacceptable.
Okay, so pushback from key European allies shows the deep divisions are still very much there.
Definitely. And the Kremlin repeated its line that you can't talk to Russia using the language of ultimatums.
Right. Reinforcing their view that it needs to be a negotiation based on mutual respect, not just one side dictating terms, highlights the remaining difficulties.
So wrapping it all up, we've got this proposed U.S. peace plan, starting with the ceasefire idea. We've had direct Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul, leading to agreements on ceasefire prep and a big prisoner swap. And we have this really crucial phone call set between the U.S. and Russian presidents.
Yeah, lots of moving parts. But it's crucial to remember these are, early stages. It's still incredibly complex, a tough situation. These are potential steps, but there are massive hurdles still ahead.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.